Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tony and thank you for joining me today. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe because we have got a long way to go. We're in the middle now of building this huge 1:6 scale full metal kit from Armortek, the Jagdpanther, the G2, which is the later version of the tank destroyer out of the Second World War period. And when we left off last time, we had assembled all the sprockets, well, I say all the sprockets, both sprockets and the idler wheels. And in between now and then I've gone ahead and painted them, and actually what I'm going to do, I did film that, and what I'm going to do in a moment, I'm going to just sort of hand that over and you can see a time-lapsed video of, or portion of video of me painting these. I've gone for the olive green on both the sprocket and the idler, slightly off-piste, but I actually think it's going to turn out wonderfully with the chosen camo scheme I'm going to do for the top hull section. I think it's going to be really smart, and again, you know, look, these kits are personal to you. You're not trying to build them, well, you may want to, but a lot of us don't want to build to a museum grade or completely accurate grade. We just want something that reflects our personality and also just, you know, pay homage to Armortek and the detail and the thought and the engineering and the design they put into these amazing kits. So yes, I've gone for the olive green. Really pleased with that, and you can see the video in a short while. What I'm going to do while you're watching that, I'm going to go off and get all my parts that I'm going to need for the next step of the build. And in today's video, I'm going to be doing I'll do some weathering on the sprockets and the idler wheel because I think that's important, and then we'll go ahead and we'll install the dreaded taper lock. When I say the dreaded taper lock, some builders get a little bit hung up on the taper lock and how that should be installed, because yes, it's a vital part of the build, and at this stage it's so crucial to get it correct because it does affect the operational aspect of your kit when it's running. So it is a very important stage. So we'll do that, and then we'll go on and we'll do the idler wheels as well. So again, a lot to cover in today's video, and I really hope you're going to enjoy watching this. So anyway, I'll let you watch the painting sequence and then I'll be straight back. I hope you enjoyed that. As I said, look, I've done a ton of painting. I don't like, well, I don't mind filming painting, but it's like watching paint dry. So I've just sped that up, and hopefully you found that interesting. And as I said, you can see the build up of the coats. The whole process can take up to 6 hours. It seems crazy, but it takes 6 hours because of the drying time between coats. And build the coats up slowly. I've been spraying using can spraying or tin spraying for many years, and I've kind of got my own technique to doing it. Of course, it goes without saying, wear the correct mask for when you're painting, goggles and gloves. Right, so now it's time to do some weathering on these sprocket wheels and the idler wheels themselves. So I've got my brushes and I've got my enamel sort of wash paint ready. So I'll just change the camera position and zoom in and we'll get cracking. First things first, I'm just going to pop this hubcap back into place, just as a temporary. I'll do that on both of those. That's fine. Then I'm going to get my fine detailing brush, put a little bit of that enamel paint on there, and we're just going to go around as we did on the wheels and just apply some paint around that edge. Then we're going to use the dry brush technique just to sort of spread that and feather that paint around. And just wipe off the excess. Obviously, being a darker colour than the base yellow, it doesn't show up as much, so I'm just going to do that again. Now this time I'm going to come in here around these nuts. And then again, just using the dry brush technique, just feathering this in. And then paper towel just to wipe off the excess. You only want it sort of just kind of highlighting some of the parts that around the nuts and around sort of, you know, the reveal like that, and subtle. And I'm pretty happy with that. It's subtle. Just going to put a bit more around using the dry brush, just to with a little bit of enamel paint that's left on that, just picking that up and going around the edge of that. So the edge of the hubcap picks up a bit of the grime as well. Actually really pleased how that's starting to look. I don't know if you can pick that up on the camera. It's subtle. It's only when you compare it to the, don't know if you can see that or not, but that's the look and feel that we're trying to achieve. I'm not going to bother with the inside of this because that really won't be seen you know, from the external part of the tank. And also over time this does find its own sort of color pitch anyway, because obviously when it rubs with the track and paint comes off the track and comes off the sprocket wheel, it kind of sort of starts blending in perfectly. So that's that. We'll just pop that one over there, and we'll do exactly the same again. Again, you don't have to do this. You can allow it to find its own sort of weathering if you like. I did that on the Tiger, and the more I drove the Tiger, the more, probably a bit too much on that, the more it kind of weathered itself. Got a bit carried away with that one, but anyway, there we go. So again, we're going to go around these nuts here, around that sort of brass detailing, just using the dry brushing technique. It's a really nice sort of piece of freedom that you get with your tank build. Just want to kind of feather, you don't want any sort of sharp edges of paint. And again, that's really starting to look really good. I'm really pleased with that. I don't think we need to do any wiping. Just going to come back actually and do a bit more. Where's that timing marker? Just a bit more dry brushing on this one. Yeah, I'm really pleased with that. Don't know if you can see that. It just a very subtle change makes the world of difference. So now we'll go on and do the idler wheels. Obviously you've got the hubcaps left in place for the time being. The temptation is to sort of apply a bit of rust on this, but don't forget this particular, the G2 was one of the later models, later versions of the tank destroyer that were introduced towards the end of the Second World War. So it would be in the field, but would it have really been sort of abused, and you know, would it had that much sort of exposure to rust? I don't know. So I think a grubby sort of mechanical sort of look is what we're trying to achieve. Grit and grime, it would have built up. Let's go back round now, especially on this sort of central hub. I'm really pleased with that actually. I think that's about the right look. I really love doing this sort of stuff, and I think it's just a great opportunity for builders to really show off their personality, like I've said many times. Just going to put a little bit around the inside of that. Just want to try and get some streaks, as if that would have run out of those little reveals. But again, you know, this is time to have a little bit of fun and enjoy yourself. So again, subtle. I'm not sure if you can see that, but that subtle detail will make all the difference. And then once we've got this done, and this is all dry, we can then start thinking about installing the sprocket and setting the sprocket using the bit of track that I've previously built and you've seen. Just get that around that. And then yeah, we can really start moving forward on the build. Again, it's really important that if you're going to do some detailing like this and weathering, do it while you're proceeding with the tank, because once you get to a certain stage, it's going to be harder for you to get to these parts. Just going for that kind of streaky look that I think you'd probably get as a bit of a build up. Just go on the inside of that, as you did before. Just want that kind of grease and grime kind of look. I'm not into I'm not into destroying these. I know some builders, and they look pretty good when they do them, but they look battle damaged. I just cannot bring myself to do that. You put all this work and effort into building your model with a lot of care, and then you take a hammer to it and destroy it or distress it. Not for me. I like the weathering side of things. I also like the factory, just got out the factory kind of look. A bit of a, I don't know what that is. That's a bit of, don't know what that is. Might be a brush. So anyway, that is that. Really pleased with that. So they're now done. Again, subtle, but I think it'll make all the difference. Right, so clear all this away, and then we'll crack on with the sprockets. First things first, let's just pop that hubcap off and put that to one side. In fact, I'm going to have to unwind that now, because once I've got the taper lock installed, I will have to put this hubcap on. So that's all the little parts all painted, so that's all good. Right, the dreaded taper lock. Let me just get this in the correct orientation. Right, so what you have, each kit comes with, well, when you've got a sprocket installed like this, it comes with a taper lock, which is this beautifully engineered piece of steel here, 2 big grub screws, and a key, little locking key like that. And the locking key, there's a slot in the taper lock there that slides into, and also locks into the main drive case, or the main drive gear I should say, which I'll show you shortly. But before we do anything on this, one key thing to do is to make sure that there is no grease and no deposits on the metal parts. They're going to touch each other. So these parts here, this outside here, no grease, nothing on this. This needs to be absolutely spotlessly clean. And although I've cleaned this up previously, I'm also just going to go in and just give that another wipe. So we'll do that, pop that there, get the other one out and do exactly the same and allow that to dry. 2 grub screws and a key. You also want to make sure that this is perfectly machined. I've not had one yet, but I've heard that some of these may have a little bit of an imperfection on them, which may affect the ability for it to sort of lock into position inside the sprocket. So that's that one. Let's get the other one. Pop that out. Do the same thing, just unwind those. Leave that there like that. We'll go again, just give this a good old clean on the inside of that. Allow that to dry, and then we can install, well, we can start the install. Okay, just to move that one out of the way, and we'll bring the first one in. Now the correct orientation for this is, you've got on the sprocket itself, you have a threaded side left and right, and then a non-threaded side on the top here. What you have to do is to match up so that the non-threaded sides on the taper lock itself match up the holes, the threaded holes this side, and then this threaded side at the top here needs to match up with the non-threaded side inside the sprocket. We just need to make sure, classic, that they line up pretty good, so the half circles on each part make up a full circle, like so, with the split part being on the bottom. We don't worry about this key for now, but then we have got these 2 grub screws here, and what it asks us to do is lightly oil. So I've got a bit of 3-in-1 here, just oil. Just going to wipe off the excess of that. Pop that onto my hex tool and just put it in with a bit of maybe half turn. You want this loose when it goes onto the main drive gear. Whoops. Just want to get that oil around that. Just a couple of turns so it doesn't come out. Right, that's it, ready to go on to the drive shaft. So what I'm going to do now is I'll reposition the camera and we'll take it straight to the drive shaft or the main drive case and complete the install. Alright, so first things first, always make sure that this little key slots into that main drive shaft, and in this case it does. I have had it in the past where there's a little bit of a blemish on here, and it you have to then just clean it up with a little file. And now, keeping everything fairly loose, I've got to try and get this onto the main shaft. Pull that out a little bit. Tricky as anything. There we go. Right, so that's on there, sort of fairly loose. Next thing I need to do is just line up the slot. With the slot, just going to put that in there just to try and hold the try and get that to rotate around, and it does. So I've got that. Now hopefully you can see that this slot is now aligned, and we can now put that key in. That stops that from doing anything other than that. Now it's time to get the track. Get that to mesh with the sprocket as we've done before. That's it. It's all fairly loose. Now we can start winding these rub screws in, and you do them the same amount of turns. So 2 turns I'm doing on the top one here, 2 turns on the bottom one. And by the way, this one here, which was originally on the top here, this is for if you ever need to release the taper lock. You wind one of these grub screws out here and you put it in here, and then that actually allows it to release. So I'm going to be, while I'm tightening these up, I'm also going to be keeping an eye on the alignment underneath of the wheels. Just winding these in a couple of turns each time. I can actually feel that taper lock starting to do its thing. You want this sprocket to be perfectly square and plumb and aligned. You can feel it starting to grab and do its job. Still a bit lively, but it will tighten up. Now there is, with the taper lock itself, you get a little chart with it, and it tells you if you're using a torque wrench what to set it to. So I'm going to be doing that in a moment, but I'm just making sure that all that, just by eye, is aligned. I can see it's got a bit of a wobble on it, so that still needs a bit of work. This is where your patience come in, and as I said, this piece of track is invaluable right now. So we'll carry on just winding that in a bit, and we're just going to give that a bit of a knock with the hammer, with a rubber. I've got a rubber mallet here. Now it's time to apply some torque to it. can see I'm going to have to give that a bit of a knock in a minute. That feels good. Already starting the paint, some of the paint starting to come off. That's running very nicely now. Looks right in alignment with the wheels. Just another. Get some more. Another couple of turns. Running that through, that is absolutely perfect. Just get the mesh on that. And just running my eye down through the whole thing, looks exactly as it should. So I'm very, very pleased with that. So that hopefully explains how we do the taper locks. I'm going to go on now and do the other side, and then we can put these little hubcaps on. Hopefully that's explained the principle of it, and it's helped you. So now I'm just going to go and get everything I need for the other side, and we'll do that. Right, so the problem here is, like as I previously said, that there's just a little bit of rough edges on this slot here. We need that to be clean in order for us to be able to slide this lock in, this key. And I guess it's just part of the manufacturing process. You just need to be mindful of that. Sometimes on these amazing kits there is a little bit of fettling required, and it's better to check that ahead of doing anything else. So I'm going to carry on doing this for a minute, just enough to be able to get, I can feel it, it's quite rough. It's getting better. Anyway, I'll carry on doing this. When we're ready, I'll come back and we'll put the other one on. Okay, that's nice and clean now. That slides in there. Now, let's get the next sprocket wheel on. Again, same kind of deal. Just trying to get everything to line up. Try and get that. This to align with the slot. That's it. Get that key in. That's it. Now we can start doing a little bit of work. So as before, I'm just going to try and position this as central as I can, and then start winding in the taper lock, and you can see that taper lock is starting to do its job. Pulling that in. We need to give that a bit of a knock. Let's get the track. That's it. That's on. Get all your tools handy. push that back into position. Couple of winds on each one of these. Another little knock with the hammer. I say hammer, rubber mallet. Be careful. Essential part of the job, this. I'm just checking the alignment of the wheel and it looks good. A couple more little turns. Starting to feel a bit of resistance on that now. And before I get the torque wrench out, I just want to make sure that that is lined up. You can see there's a tiny little bit of a wobble on that. And that's got to go in a little bit more. That's better. If you're seeing visually that this looks a bit odd, that's because, don't forget, this is just a temporary cap that I put over this, so that's not perfectly centre. So you might be looking at that and go, oh, it looks a bit odd, but trust me, it doesn't. It isn't. Right, now, get the torque wrench on this. That's looking really good. It's meshed, flush, tight, everything as it should be. Absolutely superb. Really, really pleased with that. So now we can go on and talk about putting these hubcaps on. Okay, so before we go ahead and put the hubcaps on, they do ask us to just put a bit of grease in this hole here just to prevent rust building up. That's what I'm going to do. Just take the excess off of that. It's just to stop that from filling up, getting rust in it and everything else. So that's that. Now we can put the hubcap on. Doesn't really matter which orientation you're going to put it on. Then we've got a little brass brace. That's already been painted. Get that ready. We can get our fixing. I am going to put a bit of thread locker on this. Not a lot. Just don't want that inadvertently coming loose. So as long as I don't put too much thread locker on it, if I need to get it off for whatever reason in the future, I can just apply a bit of heat to that. And then that will take care of that. I'm not going to put any thread locker on these. Because these should be fine. They're going into aluminium and the aluminium bites quite nicely. Now at this point we have to be ever so careful. We've obviously got these painted, and you will inevitably knock a bit of paint off when you're winding these in. Where's my little socket? Oh, it's there. It's going to be very gentle. Right, get the right one, eh? and that's it. Really pleased with that. Okay, so now we're on to the idler wheel. So we're going to start on the left hand side of the tank, and I'll position the camera to hopefully show you everything that's going to need to be done. First thing we need to do is there's an access hatch at the back of here, which was put in on the very early stages of the build, and I don't really remember. I did say that I wasn't going to put any thread locker on this because I knew this would have to be removed as part of the installation of the idler wheel. So I'm just going to pop that in there. Now just going to slide that open. Don't know if you saw that. Can you see that? This here. Now my finger can actually go through. Obviously I've painted the inside of this, but I'm now going to try and get some paint off so I can get a decent fixing. When I say fixing, it's got to be glued. So I'm just going to go and get some sandpaper just to get rid of that. Okay, got my sandpaper. All I want to do is just take off the paint so that when this part is glued in, it gets a decent fixing against the metal rather than the paint. That's enough. Give that a bit of a wipe. Now, just I'm trying to find the glue. It's awkward because I'm trying to do this to show you everything. Then we have this component here, which basically this adjusting bolt here sits inside. I don't know if you can see that. It's got a beautifully sort of semicircular scalloped out there, and the whole idea of that is that allows that to pivot. And it does tell us to round the head of this off, so I might just go and do that on my bench sander in a moment. But what we can do is we can get these glued in. One goes on this side like that, and one goes on the other side, so I better go and release this as well. Just hold the nut on the other side of that. Just pop that in there, out of the way for now. See, I haven't painted the back of this, so just have to release the back. So I haven't painted the back of this. I'm not worried about damaging paint on the outside. That's unhooked itself, but that's fine. That needs the same treatment. Just to remove the paint from the inside of the hull. That's that. Give that a bit of a wipe. And now we can then go on and glue these. The idea is that once you've got access from the rear here, so I'm just poking my finger through, you'll be able to get to the fixing here to put a socket or a hex tool in it. So when that's positioned like that, you'll be able to access it from the rear to adjust this. But I'm not sure yet, but sometimes you have enough access from the top to be able to adjust it. But in the event we don't, we will make sure that we do this properly. So I'm just going to get some glue. Sorry, just the glue. Just going to nudge that around, use that to spread that around, slot that into place. Do the other one. And while the glue's going off on this, I'll go and use my bench sander to take just round the head off, as Armortek asked us to do on the other one. So that's that. Their glue will go off on those two things. So I'll go and get my bench sander and just round off the sharp edge of this head. So that's those two big fasteners rounded off the ends there, so they should work a lot better in that sort of position there. Right, so it's now time to get one of the idler arms. This smaller shaft is the one that the wheel sits on, so that just, you position that so it's on the heavy side down, so you know it naturally wants to sit there, so that's absolutely fine. We can at this stage now put the wheel on. Just slide that wheel into that position. Then we've got one of these arms here, which we have this lug that goes through here, but I don't know if it's going to go in. Wow, that went in nice and easy. Normally they need a bit of cleaning up. No need to glue this. Then this shoulder here presents itself onto the hull. Right, that needs a bit of cleaning up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deburr the edges here and here. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do that over here, so it's not going to go into lose all this shrapnel into the hull monster, as a couple of my followers keep calling it. Also going to use a bit of sandpaper just rolled up and go through and just clean that up. So I'm basically doing that, but I don't want it to go down into this hole. This is just to give it a fighting chance. Let's have a look and see if that will now pass through. Oh yeah, that feels better. Might just need to give that a little tap with my mallet, which I need to go and find. What did I do with that? Let's see if I can do without the mallet. Nope. Aha. Bear with me. Just found it. That's it. Always needs a little bit of encouragement. So that's in there now, like that. Now what we've got to do is line up the hole. There's a hole in the idler arm and this, which we have a 30mm M5 fixing that goes through. That it's not threaded, but I'm going to use my hex tool just to wind it down into position. Don't want to force that through, it could damage the thread. Just trying to find its way through the other side of this. Pretty sure we're good to go. Just want to move that up. Let's bring it in. Super tight, don't know why. Why is that so tight? I had to look at that. I'm not liking how tight that is. That should be a lot looser than that. It's almost like this wheel needs to be. I wonder if I've got to take a piece of that shoulder off. I'm going to have a good look at this. Sometimes these things do happen. Let's Simple fixes, I'm sure. You should have nice, this should move reasonably freely, not as tight as that. And I think the problem is I might just have to sand this, I really carefully flatten this off a bit, because obviously I've painted that, and even though it's a little bit of paint, it could be the issue. But I'm going to just take a tiny piece, I mean literally 0.5 millimeter off of this using my bench sander. That's much better. So before I do anything else, I'm going to find the reciprocating nut, put a tiny bit of thread locker on that, and then wind that into place there, and tighten it all up. I'm still a bit tight, but what I might do is put some dry lube on that. It's just where the paint has been, where I've painted it. That feels better. Right, so now we're just going to get this pin and put that in. That dry lube's worked brilliantly, look at that. Right, so now all that remains is we'll just wind this threaded, I'm just going to take that all the way in, and that sits down like that. Now let's demonstrate how this works. So when you want to adjust your track, now let's make sure I've got the right tool. No, that is the wrong tool. I need to go a size up. Let's just double check that is the right tool. That's the one. When you want to adjust your track, and assuming your track's on here, and you need to tension or release the tension, or tighten it or release, you simply come in from the back here. Let me just pan the camera out so you can see. So I'm coming in from the back of the unit here, and find the head of that, and then I can adjust the idler wheel, and I don't know if you can see the idler wheel rising. Hopefully you can, or dropping it. Dropping it, so that would slacken the tension off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this about halfway, can you see that? Was it? Can you see that? This rising. Imagine that, just with the full track on it. I normally set these for about halfway and then see how we get on. So that's that complete. I'm going to pop that back on. I don't want to lose that. And we'll do the other side. So that's that. Pleased with that. So we're going to now go on and do the other side. So exactly the same process for the opposite side. Again, idler wheel going in under its own weight. Just double check that hole. Yeah, I don't know what it is. There's it's a little bit of swarf in these holes. Just we'll be mindful of that. So that's gone in there. I've already put that pin in that side. Not sure I'm going to have the same problem on this side with the hole. Let me see. I think I am. Yeah. So I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to just take the face of this off with my bench sander. That seems to be better. So I'm just going to wind that in as I did before. This has been a major step forward in the build of this amazing kit. It really has. It allows us now to start considering the next step, which will be the upper hull section. But I think, as I said before, I'm tempted to now sort of carry on, build the tracks, test fit them both sides. Why is that not going through? Oh, there you go. Bit of swarf. Yeah, test fit them both sides and then take them off again, paint them, and then put them to one side, ready for the end of the build. It's always the last thing you put on is the track. There we go. There's a nut. So as before, just going to put a tiny little bit of thread locker on the end of that. We don't want that coming undone. Always awkward. It's always awkward. There we go. I can assure you, if you're building one of these, it won't be as awkward. It's just I'm trying to sort of keep you guys in the camera view, if you like. Socket on the end of that. That is awkward. That's a bit better. That's it. Perfect. You can see that doesn't need any lube on this side this time. And again, we'll thread this through and set this to about 50%. Like I did on the other side. What I can do now is actually think about taking this hubcap off. I need to put a fixing in the wheel, a sort of securing washer and a fixing in the other wheel. Mustn't forget that. And then we can put the hubcaps on. I just think this is the best way to protect those bearings when you're painting them. Might as well pop that wheel on there now. Now we can wind that in. About 50%, as good. And the only other thing I'm going to do now is just put that fastener back on and close up that hatch. And then that, again, don't put any thread locker on this because you will need to access it potentially to adjust the track tension. That is that. The only thing I need to do now is to put a couple of fasteners in either side of these. So we've got one of these securing washers with a 12mm M5 countersunk screw, which is going to need some thread locker. Now I can put that in. I'll make sure that spins freely, and it does. We're going to do the other side. Sometimes if you're not careful, there's a little bit of burring on here, and that can sort of bind with your wheel and then sort of, if you like, affect how it performs. So now that goes in there. And that's it. And we can now put the hubcaps on. Let me come over this side first. I'm pretty sure this one is from this side. Just I'm going to hand wind them in. Again, when I put the socket on here, I'm not going to do it too tight, and I'm definitely not putting thread locker on these, because you will potentially need to get access to it. Just going to put these on ever so just hand tight. Because this is aluminium, and the aluminium tends to grab the fixing quite well, you don't have to go over zealous. And when you drive these tanks, once I've driven a tank, I'll go around and I check all of the fixings, all of the parts that could come loose. It's always a good idea to just double check that before you park it, well, just before you put the tank away and put it on charge. So it's one of the things I always look for, is any loose nuts and bolts and whatever, because it could potentially get into the track and break a track link, which isn't the end of the world if that's the case. They always supply spare track links and pins, but it's you know, just if it's something that you could avoid doing. These cast tracks are beautiful. They are beautiful, but bear in mind they are cast aluminium. They're not steel. So there are certain things that it does not like, and one of them in particular is gravel. So just bear that in mind. Now I've got a gravel drive, so if you've ever watched any of my loading videos, you'll see I've got a mat that I put down so that it doesn't pick gravel up, because that gravel gets in to the track and in through your sprocket. It's going to definitely break a link, and it could also damage your sprocket. So just bear that in mind. Just almost there. Yep, and that's it. Really pleased with that. So I'm just going to have a bit of a tidy up and I'll come back to camera. So that's it, the end of another build session, and actually I'm really pleased again how things have gone. It's a credit to Armortek, I tell you, because the way they build this particular kit, I've had no issues with it whatsoever. In the past with other kits you've seen, there's been a lot of work to be done to them, but in this one they've absolutely smashed it out of the park. So a massive thanks to Armortek, and I'm really pleased. I don't know how many times I could say that, but we're at stage 12 of the build, which, you know, we've achieved a lot, and I really think it's starting to look really smart. I love the way the wheels look. I love the weathering on the wheels, and the process of the sprocket installation was so easy, and I really hope that's helped you. And if you are looking at building one of these for the first time, or you've bought your first kit, or considering buying one of these but worried about the build, that is one of the most complicated parts that you can do. And when I say complicated, it's essential, really crucial to get it right. So I really hope that that's shown you how straightforward it is, especially when you follow the instructions that are clearly laid out by Armortek. So I really hope that has helped you. And of course we did the idle wheels and we did the track tensioning system, and now it's on to track building. So the newill video will all be about track building, but I'll film some of it in real time as I normally do, and then speed up the whole process because it's hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of build. But I'm actually looking forward to doing it, because once I've got that built, I can get them onto the tank, and then we can do a little bit of a test roll on my bench. So I'll just roll it backwards and forwards on my bench over some small obstacles, just to make sure everything's meshing as it should, and the track tensioning system is working as it should. And then once I'm happy with all of that, I'll take the track off, and then I'll get it painted, and then I'll just put it to one side until the end of the build. And then after that we'll move on to, or start the top hull section, which is a huge amount of work, but I'm looking forward to all of it. Anyway, I will say thank you if you've joined me today. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, because there's a long way to go on this. And again, thanks for all your amazing support. If you've liked this video, give me a thumbs up, because they really do help. And please keep those comments coming. I really enjoy interacting with you guys. So I'll sign off by saying thanks again for joining me. Thanks for all your support. I'm Tony, love building these kits, and I'll see you in my next session. See you soon.